Welcome to Chicago Drives Podcast, your go-to source for all things related to driving in Chicago. From navigating the city's busy streets to understanding the latest traffic laws. What are your questions? Our amazing guests are some of the best people in the business to answer and keep you ahead of the automotive curve. Am I ready to drive alone? What's that sound? Did I get ripped off? How do I protect this huge investment? We are here to help you become a safe and responsible driver on the road. So buckle up and join us in this journey through the ins and outs of driving in the Windy City. Welcome to Chicago Drives Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to Chicago Drives Podcast. I'm your host, Naya, and today we have interesting information to share with you, especially because it's our first podcast that we're going to be airing out pretty soon. So in today's episode, we'll be talking about the new laws and regulations related to driving. So taking effect in 2023, let's be prepared and take action with these new laws. I'm joined by Frank Valencia. He is Control and Training Coordinator at Nova Driving School. And today he will be sharing his thoughts and experience with us. Remember, this is our first episode and I hope you enjoy it. Hi, Frank. How are you? Thank you for joining with us today.
Thank you.
New year, new laws taking effect in 2023 in Illinois. So let's talk about these new laws that brings to Chicago drivers. So what's your impressions about this? The first law relates to vehicles owners and users. So let's start with our podcast talking about this first law that it's gonna be so interesting for those that their cars getting stolen. So there's the HB 03772 that says, provides people whose cars were stolen are not liable for violation fees, fines, or penalties when caught on red light cameras or speed cameras. So Frank, tell me a little bit about that. What are your thoughts about?
It's been long in coming. For the longest time, people that have had their cars stolen have had to pay the tickets that were imposed on their cars during the time that it was stolen. So now, finally, they're not going to be liable for that cost. In the past, it's been very difficult for them to fight with the city to get those tickets taken off. Some have been successful, but most have not. And then they end up having to pay. Not only do they lose their car, but then they have to pay out of their pocket. Now they're not going to have to. So it's a good thing.
So it's very interesting how this law can change everybody's pocket, right? For the first law that we just spoke about. So now the second law, it's a little bit more interesting because it talks about uniting these two great policies that are trying to combine. The law says the HB 04716, it says, requires the Illinois State Board of Education to work with the Secretary of State. So education professionals, though we're talking about teachers, right? So an association representing teachers and students to update the state's learning standards for driver's education for students under the age of 18. This is great news, Frank, because we need to teach our kids more in depth about being defensive driving, right? What are your thoughts about this law?
Absolutely. Well, in the past, the state only required the public schools to teach driving and to maneuver the car, and that's about it. But now the state is requiring the school board to have cognitive, physical, and psychological abilities to handle a vehicle, which is very important because it's all mental. 90% of the driving is mental. And if your mental capacity is not there, doesn't matter how well your physical capacity is. So now they're incorporating cognitive, physical, and psychological. Your psyche has to be there as well.
Right, that's right. That's why they're trying to associate with different agencies, like private agencies, like schools that are teaching how to drive. And that includes us. Nova it's one of the lead schools here in driving. We teach the children all of the standards. Like we have 80 chapters that touches all the little things that in schools don't do. So
exactly. We've been teaching this for as long as we have been working. And so now the public school has to catch up to us. We've been
Exactly.
more or less the lead, and now they're going to catch up with us.
Exactly. That's why we're the number one here in Chicago and hopefully in the whole US. But it's very important to understand as a parent, we need to have our kids well informed and well practiced because, like you said, it's not only go behind the wheel and drive. No, there's so many things that we have to keep consideration when we teach our children how to drive, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
this is an excellent law. I really like this law. So whoever is listening about having their children taking classes, well, nobody's here, so we can help them.
Absolutely, absolutely. The few times that I get to communicate with parents, I mentioned things of that sort. I said, your son or daughter can be the best car handler, but they can still have the most accidents if they're not watching out and thinking about the other drivers. And they're going to be wondering, why is everybody always crashing into me? Well, maybe it's because you're not putting attention to the possibility that somebody else can hit you. It's not just a matter of you knowing how to drive, but being aware of your surroundings.
Exactly.
Driving
That's the
defensively.
exactly thing I say to them. I mean, you can be a perfect driver, but what about the surroundings that where you're driving? You cannot
Absolutely.
control that. You only can control how you drive, but but you always have to be in the defensive side when you're driving. So it's
Exactly.
very interesting how they maybe because of the accidents that we're seeing about, teenagers being killed while driving. Maybe that's why this law came up about at
I
this
have no
time,
doubt. I
Mhm.
think you hit the nail on the head. I have no doubt that that's the reason.
Yep, excellent. Let's go to the next one. Frank, is the law that will reduce the vehicle registration fee for senior citizens from
Yay!
$24 to $10. Hey,
Yay!
you're about
I'm
there,
not a
right?
senior
You're about there.
citizen. I'm not a senior citizen yet, but I'm almost there. I already qualified for the International House of Pancakes discount. So I'm looking forward to that. Paying $10 versus 24.
Hey,
Absolutely. It's a
hey, who
help for
give
senior citizens. They need all the help they can get. Their Social
exactly.
Security doesn't cover enough to sustain their livelihood throughout the year. They always have to find some supplement, and this will help.
Exactly. Who can give you $14 extra, right? So this is awesome. This is awesome. I think, like you said, Frank, I think it's a good help for our senior citizens that are most of them are retired, right? Like you said. So this law turned out to be good for them. So kudos for those seniors. We all
Yeah.
want to be there. So
Woo-hoo.
maybe in the
Me,
future we don't have
me
to
sooner
pay
than others.
anything.
Me sooner than others.
Maybe we won't have to pay anything. Okay, let's go to the next one. Now, the next one is a little bit, like you said, we're waiting for this law. So it's the HB 05328, which says changes school zone speed limits to apply to local, counties, and state roadways. Additionally, provides that a park zone street applies to states or local streets.
Well, it appears that those laws have been solely local, not pertaining to county and state, and now they're widening it so that it includes everyone. It encompasses all the local and state governments, which means that parking is not going to be provided around schools, where it has been in county and state. Now it's going to be everywhere. You can't park around the school. They're going to have signs, and you're going to get ticketed if you do, as well as the school speed limit signs. They're going to be enforcing the school zones speed limit laws in both county and state as well as local. So
Yeah,
it's a good thing. It's a good thing for our kids.
yeah. Because even though there's the signs there that you can drive more than 50 miles per hour, there's people that don't respect that, and
Yeah.
there's always that issue of not respecting the rules of the roads. So with this law, it's going to be just on target. Parking zones in all the streets that are schools, perfect. I think they should make this law as a US law,
I agree.
everywhere.
I
Everywhere should
agree.
have
I
that
agree.
law
I
for
agree.
school zones. Yeah,
And
very
while we're
interesting.
on the topic of kids, there's another law that needs to be changed slightly and that's the one with the school buses.
Oof,
I see people
yes.
passing school buses all the time with their stop arm extended and the red flashing lights going, and the cars just keep going around. Um, I think that maybe during school hours, that police officers should patrol the areas where buses are more often so that they can catch offenders. They're not getting caught, and because they're not getting caught, they're breaking those laws. But that's
Exactly.
for the future, and I hope that they address that soon.
Yeah, because they're not being paying attention. That's why they're doing it. Even though it says it's $150 fines if you pass a bus or something like
But you
that.
got to get caught in order to for that to.
Exactly. And how you're gonna get caught if there's no authority around the area. So I think that should be a good law. I totally agree with you, Frank. Because of the safety of our children, people, they don't have a consideration of driving around on the side, or they don't even stop.
Yeah,
And most of
they
the
don't care.
times, the school crossers, the people that cross the kids the streets, school guards they call it. I mean, they
I,
try to do their job, but they only can do one thing, But
I've seen some. Pardon me. I've seen some bus drivers, school bus drivers, that are doing something great, and maybe they should make that a standard for all school buses. I've seen school bus drivers that they move their bus in a diagonal to block both directions of traffic while they load and
oh,
unload kids. That way, nobody
hmm,
can get around them because the bus is
right.
in the way. So now the offenders can't go around because the bus is blocking. Maybe that
Hmm.
should become a standard so that bus drivers can do that, and that ensures that nobody can go around because the bus is blocking.
Yeah, but the first thing is they need to get caught. They need to be more what do you call it? Have more attention to that,
Yeah,
And if whoever came out with this idea, it's great. The way you blocking and making sure the kids are crossing, but because the buses are not unloading or loading kids on the right side, the kids get off from the right side, but they might cross the street to the
crossover.
other side. So
Absolutely.
the cars are coming, on the other end, they don't even stop, they just go by, and so that's it. I think that's a great idea. That's a great idea that they should have that law implemented or make that as a law. Yep, let's keep going with our laws. These are kind of good laws. I mean, I love how it's turning out, especially for kids and for us as drivers. So the next one's
Absolutely.
the 03007, which it says makes a variety of technical changes to the Illinois Vehicle Code, amend the Illinois Vehicle Code. So what does that mean? So that means that provided that the Secretary of State is authorized to suspend or revoke the driving privilege of any person without preliminary hearing upon a showing of the person's records. And there's more to it. Go ahead, Frank.
This is the one that follows you to your current state. So if you commit a crime or if you commit an offense in another state, you can be liable here in the state that you live in, and it will impact you here as well. So if you did something in California, New York, wherever, they can follow you here, and it'll affect your driver's license here. They can suspend or revoke your driver's license, even though the offense wasn't here; it was elsewhere. And that's another one that should be
Should have been
uniformly
done way,
done.
way back ago.
Exactly, should be statewide. I mean, nationwide, not just statewide.
Yeah, nationwide. Yeah, because many of those people that did something in a different state will, move away to a different state
To get
because
away
yes. So now, even if they move away, nowhere
and
they
hide.
everywhere they go, if they get caught, they're gonna have to get all what the law requires for them to get a charge for any crime that that person committed. So it's
Absolutely.
very interesting how this turned out, because
I,
we
I'm
have so
surprised that
many
hasn't been the
crimes with so
law
many
in the past.
murders.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. That law was long in coming. It should have been in place long ago, decades ago. But At least now it's getting implemented.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
keep going with our laws. Then we have another one that is really interesting as well. So it's the SB 03216, which says changes the Illinois Vehicle Code by adding licensed physical therapists to the first or of a person who can determine that a person has disability for purposes under the vehicle code. It's very interesting because you and I, we've been talking about this a while ago. And how can we help our teens or anybody that has a certain type of disability? So tell us a little bit about what you think or what are your thoughts about this law?
Yes, it's something that I've been involved with in the past through another school that I used to work at, but where the physician or doctor takes away the driving privileges of the patient due to illness or injury. Say they lost a limb, a leg, an arm, or they had some kind of uh, illness that caused them to be disabled for a short period of time. Then after, through rehabilitation, the patient is asking the doctor, is it possible for me to drive again? I would like to be mobile. I would like to have my independence. Then the doctor would call on me and say, Frank, I need you to take this patient, evaluate them, determine if they're capable of driving again. And if they are, if they're going to need lessons or if they're going to need other equipment in the car in order to be able to drive. So then I would take them out. At that time, I had a specially equipped car with all kinds of attachments to the steering wheel and all kinds of attachments to the pedals.
You
And so
accommodate
then I
the
would,
car to that condition of that student, right?
exactly. So then I could modify the car and adapt it to their needs, and then I would take them driving. And based on my observations, I would make a determination if they're able to drive again, and if they were, how much time are they going to spend learning the new method of driving. And yeah, their independence is utmost important because when you become disabled, it becomes very difficult to function just with everyday mundane things that we take for granted. And
Exactly.
this way they gain their independence and they're free to move around.
Exactly. Independence. That's the key word here that we're providing to these people that have these certain types of disability. We give them the independence. And then if that independence will make that person happy and independent and do whatever, go to work or to school, whatever it is, that will make a good way of providing that person with
Improving their
such an
life.
independence. Yes, improving their life with such an independence and having more cars adapt or accommodate their condition. So excellent, excellent, excellent law. All right. Let's keep going, Frank. We're doing great. We're doing great, Frank. So the next law it talks about is the SB 03629. So that says provides that if a vehicle owners has a legal agreement with the owners of private property to park on their property, so the owners should provide notice of a tow of the vehicle at least 3 hours before vehicle is towed. We see this a lot here in Chicago, guys. Right, Frank?
Oh yeah. In the past, the owners of the property, if they get upset at the person that they're renting their property to, they would kick them out immediately and have their car towed. Now they have to give them at least 3 hours to make any
To move.
possible way to move in their car before it gets towed. Yeah, absolutely. So it's a benefit for the people that are renting. Um, Unfortunately, there's disagreements, but disagreements still have to follow some rules. And now the rule is that you have to give them 3 hours to be able to move the car before you get it towed. Well,
Yes.
I think that law was designed not for the people that abuse parking in a private parking spot without authority. I think that law was for the people that are giving permission to park in their private property. But if there's some kind of dispute or disagreement between the two parties, that now the owner of the property does not have the right to just get their car towed away immediately, but that person needs to give them the 3 hour advance notice. I believe that's the reason. For example, let's say your neighbor has a 2-car garage, and you are renting one half of the garage, but then for whatever reason that property owner got mad at you and says you got to get your car out, and if you don't get it out right now, I'm going to call a tow truck. He can no longer call the tow truck until you have at least 3 hours to get your car out. I think that's the reason for that law right now. I don't think it's the one for blocking driveways or parking um, in their private property unauthorized.
Let's go to the next one.
Sure.
SSB 03793, which says adds community service to the penalties for speeding in a school zone. We talked a little bit earlier about school zoning, park zones, and all of that. So this is like the addition to that, I think, and which is good. So let's talk about this law, Frank.
They're cracking down on offenders speeding through school zones, which is good. You
Mm-hmm.
have to adhere to the 20 miles an hour. Um, Currently, they have that, but the enforcement is not there. Um, my suspicion is that
Correct.
in addition to this, later on in the not too distant future, they're probably going to put speed cameras in all the school zones. They're already putting them in many, but it won't be long before every single school zone has the speed cameras. And if you speed through there, you're going to get nailed.
Mm-hmm. And I think
And
that's
I'm
wonderful.
all
That's
for I'm
wonderful.
all for cracking down anything that benefits our kids. I'm all for it.
I do too. Whatever it takes for the
Yeah,
safety.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, in the past, do you get tickets for speeding through the school zones? But now, in addition to speeding, you're going to have to do community work. So it's getting a little tougher for the perpetrator. If you speed through the a school zone, whether you get caught by a camera, whether you get caught by a police, um, whether however you get caught, you're going to have to pay your fine. Plus, you're going to get community service, which means you're going to be working. You're going to be working on your off time, or you're going to be working and having to take time off from work, miss work, lose money from work to go do your community service, and you have to do your community service. You're not going to be paid for that community service either. So it's best just to adhere to the speed limits in the school zones and avoid not only the ticket, but avoid getting to do community service unnecessarily.
Nice, good. Okay, so they need to hurry up with that.
Yeah,
School zones. So now we have the school zones and the speeding, and then not respecting the stop of the bus, the school bus. So everything is connected. So hopefully we'll get there soon because of our kids, right? Of our kids'
yeah,
safety. Mhm.
yes.
So it was wonderful, wonderful. These are the wonderfuls of talking with you, Frank, about these laws, which makes us more aware of what's going on. These laws started new on 2023. So with all of this that we just talked about, will give us the persons or the people that are listening to us and is our new or first podcast idea, and be prepared that all these laws are up already. You know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And more laws are coming always to benefit um, our children, benefit our senior citizens, benefit the community in general. So good laws.
In Indeed, indeed. So if you want to hear us on a podcast soon to be out, so we recommend it. But thank you, Frank. Thank you so much
You're
for
very welcome.
sharing this time with me, for
Thank you for having
talking
me.
here about these laws. So, but let's recap of what we just spoke with Frank. And first, so you will not have to pay anything if your car is being stolen or has any type of traffic violation. Okay, so the Illinois State Board of Education and other private driving schools will work together to implement driving courses for teens. So reduce the vehicle registration fee for seniors, $24 down to $10. Changes school zone speeds. Wonderful. Makes a variety of technical changes to the Illinois vehicle codes. So the Illinois Vehicle Code, by adding licensed physical therapists to the list of persons who can determine that a person has a disability and is able to drive. Provides that if the vehicle owner has a legal agreement with the owner of a private property to park on their property. So it will give you only 3-hour notice for you to remove your car. So adds community service to the penalties for speeding in school zone. All these laws we talked about. So thank you, thank you. But first, before I leave this podcast, we are on this month our defensive driving course. So taking a driver's safety course may help you get insurance discounts. So many insurance companies provide discounts to drivers who take defensive driving classes, and the discounts typically ranges from 5% to 20% off your car insurance. So please rate, review, and describe to or follow our podcast anywhere, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast listening to. So I am Naya. Thank you for listening.